Since video games have existed, there's been the need to make your avatar on screen actually move. Now at first this was done with joysticks and knobs and things like that, and when gaming transitioned into the home, it seemed that this was how it was going to stay. But it wasn't, and although the controller has evolved a lot over the years, there's one that stands out for a very particular reason. Sony's PlayStation controller. Why does the PlayStation controller have triangle, circle, X, and square? More importantly, what inspired the other design choices behind the controller? Now to answer this, you have to jump back to 1983 and look at Nintendo. Nintendo had seen success in the games industry thanks to their arcade machines like Donkey Kong and their Game & Watch handheld devices. So much so that they decided now was the time to make their own home console, the Nintendo Entertainment System, or the Famicom in Japan, but you probably know it as the Nintendo Entertainment System. The simple gamepad of the NES helped to set it apart from the competition. On the left, you had a 4-way directional pad. On the right, B and A, 2 simple face buttons, and in the middle, start and select. It was something so simple for anyone to pick up and understand, something proven numerous times by a 4-year-old me and my 60-year-old grandma. The NES controller set a new standard for the industry, and quite quickly, Nintendo's competitors started to utilize its layout in their controllers. So, when Nintendo released a new controller, it made sense that they evolved the standard they already set. On the right, we saw 2 more face buttons, and on top, we saw what we now know as shoulder buttons. The time of the Super Nintendo was also the time of a collaboration between Nintendo and an electronics company you might have heard of, called Sony. Sony had been working with Nintendo to create a CD accessory for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. They were doing this back in 1988, before the Super Nintendo even released. Then, at the Consumer Electronics Show in 1991, Sony revealed this to the world, and they were happy they had finally revealed this great accessory. But the very next day, Nintendo announced exactly the same accessory, but with Sony's main competitor, Philips. This created an obvious conflict between Nintendo and Sony and inspired Sony to release their own console, the PlayStation, in 1994. The story of the conflict between the two is an amazing story, but it's one for another day. But it's important to tell now because of one reason why people believe Sony have triangle, circle, X and square for their PlayStation controllers. In Super Mario World, there's an enemy known as a Magikoopa, or Kamek, that attacks Mario with magic. But how does this magic manifest? That's right, with triangle, circle, square, and something that looks strangely like an X. Now, although this is a great urban legend, it's not actually the reason why PlayStation created the controller like they did. And the real reason why the shapes are how they are is much more interesting. How do we know this? Through a 2010 interview with PlayStation controller designer Teyu Goto. Teyu designed the PlayStation controller, and in this interview took the time to talk through why everything is how it is. Other game companies at the time assigned alphabet letters or colours to the buttons. We wanted something simple to remember, which is why we went with icons or symbols. And I came up with the triangle, circle, X square combination immediately afterward. I gave each symbol a meaning and a colour. The triangle refers to viewpoint. I had it represent one's head or direction and made it green. Square refers to a piece of paper. I had it represent menus or documents and made it pink. The circle and X represent yes or no decision making, and I made them red and blue respectively. People thought those colours were mixed up, and I had to reinforce to management that that's what I wanted. The controller has evolved a lot over the years to include the likes of thumbsticks, vibrations, a touchpad, and more. But one thing has always stayed the same: triangle, circle, X, and square, making them a part of PlayStation's brand identity, and not just a bunch of random shapes.